After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Few racetracks match up with the likes of Daytona, Indianapolis, Spa, but arguably Le Mans might even sit a bit higher. Running annually since 1923, the 24 Hours of Le Mans is the greatest worldwide test of motorsport, and it only gets better each and every year. While we aren't racing for 24 hours today, the Simpit Road Racing Series is ready nonetheless to try their hand at this historic circuit. Hi, welcome to Pit Stop TV and the virtual Le Mans, France. I'm Andrew Cardinale IV with Emerson Arden alongside in the booth, and we unload in France today for the first time ever on Pit Stop TV, and there's simply nothing like it. We're here virtually, but still, there's just something so special about Le Mans every time you come here, whether it's on the sim, whether you're watching it for the 24 Hours of Le Mans, no matter what it is, just Le Mans is special.
Absolutely. A fantastic and beautiful circuit, an iconic circuit on the motorsports calendar. Every driver looks to compete in, the typical 24-hour of Le Mans almost each and every year. And it's fantastic. We get this on VIRacing.com motorsport simulations platform. And yet we still have yet to do a broadcast here, Andrew. So I'm so excited that we get to do it here today, and can't wait to see what kind of product these drivers put on the track for us.
We're finally changing that today. We're finally here at Le Mans for the first time ever, and you can see all around this place. This is exciting. This is really cool to finally have a broadcast at Le Mans here on the channel. It is loud as well. Some of these scenic blimps, I must say, it is loud, especially here into the Four Chicanes. But yes, welcome to Circuit de la Sarthe, otherwise known as Le Mans. It is so cool to finally open this place up here on Pit Stop TV. That's the wrong track map. We had two broadcasts today if you didn't know. And here we go. Circuit de la Sarthe, otherwise known as Le Mans here in Le Mans, France. The fastest iRacing lap that I could find reasonably is from the previous iteration of the Formula One car, the McLaren MP430, a couple of years old now, certainly. That is a 3-minute 4-second lap time. But as far as GTE cars like we have today, the best lap time I could find was from Yannick Lapchin at a 3:41.167 on a Porsche 911 RSR. And here you go, Emerson. It is Le Mans in all of its greatness, from the Dunlop curve to the Dunlop chicane, through the S's, Tetra Rouge, down the Mulsanne straight and through the chicanes, into Mulsanne corner, Indianapolis, Arnage, the Porsche curves, the Corvette curves, and of course the Ford chicanes. All 33 corners. We got it here today.
Absolutely. Plenty of passing zones, plenty of tricky corners to test these drivers out, and can't wait to see what our action spots are gonna be. I could assume a few, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see as we get through this qualifying session what spots we'll have to be watching out for this evening.
Yes, qualifying already underway. 10 minutes to go as these drivers begin their first laps. Let's take a look, though, at our standings coming into this afternoon. And you can see here, that's the wrong standings. First of all, here we go. I got so used to seeing iFormula League stuff up. It's still, every time we got to do it, two leagues in one day. But anyways, Randall White and Edgar Sancinelli have the same amount of points, and that is not at all planned, but it sure is nice to see them both at 269 points coming into round number 8. Todd Alea, David Payne, they're both second. They each have wins, and they're both on some momentum going into today, and I'm excited to see if these battles change up a bit more, and if we see some passes potentially for the points lead.
Absolutely, some abysmal weeks for the point leaders last time out, and there was a lot of momentum. I know Todd Alea and David Payne, they have been steadily trying to close that deficit that they had to the top of the point standing sheet, and today here at Le Mans, it very much can continue on that same trend, but we could also see a turnaround. Sancinelli has been on the worst end of some trouble recently in that amateur field, and Todd Alea has been steadily on the rise in that pro field.
And it's pretty remarkable how weirdly even these top 10 in the standings are. Todd Alea and David Payne, that's maybe a little bit against the grain here, but of course your leaders are tied. Joao Antonio and Chris Schultheis, 54 points and 52 points back respectively. Even Sam Holt and Daniel Clark, for how far back they are pretty close, and certainly Stan Don and Alesh Mom only 5 points apart. Just, it's weird. Even down there in 7th spot, Johnny Alford 110 back, Kenny Stepp 107 back. They're very, very close all the way down through the order, but not having Sam Holt last week, that takes him out of the championship. Joe Antonio is too far out. Realistically, you've got two car battles for the championship the rest of this season here in the Simpit Road Racing Series. On the pro side, it's Randall White and Todd Alea. On the amateur side, Edgar Sancinelli and David Payne. That's what we're watching for today at Le Mans. As we mentioned, qualifying is on track, and drivers are trying to get their lap times in. Let's check out who's fastest so far. Well, the answer is nobody, because nobody has completed a lap just yet. But let's go on board with some drivers and see how they're faring. Here is Terry Crouch. Actually, there we go. Sam Holt to the top of the board. That's no surprise. A 3:45.579. Let's see what Terry's got.
Terry flying through the 4 chicane and coming to the start-finish line. It'll be second quickest for Terry Crouch. It'll be 9/10 off of Sam Holt, which, yes, is a pretty large margin, but you have to think that is also over the course of almost 8.5 miles.
Yeah, a lot of places to gain or lose time in one of these laps here at Le Mans. James Dowling comes across the line. Dan Clark, Kenny Stepp in his Ferrari as well in the number 66. Johnny Alford should be coming through at any point in time. And actually, Randall White just went up to third on the board, so car 84 has got some speed as well. That said, he is 1.1 seconds off the pace.
And Randall White, he just needs to stay up here and really don't get into any trouble here if he's going to be looking to maintain the advantage he has atop the point standings. He'll let the map work out himself. If Todd Alea is able to gain, he's able to gain. But if you keep yourself out of trouble, you're setting yourself up to just kind of glide through these final few races.
Todd Alea pulls off. He'll cut his lap short, and that could be a big issue. I don't think he'll have enough time. He might be able to set one lap. So he's got one chance at this point, Emerson. If you mess up your first shot at qualifying, you only have one more. That's about it.
Yeah, you're right. It takes the fastest lap right now is 3 minutes 45 seconds. So let's say it's about a 4-minute out lap. If you're taking it easy on cold tires, but you're keeping it up, keeping the pace up, you will get the runoff time to complete your lap. But outside of that, you don't have any extra cushion. It is go time next time by the start-finish line for Todd Alea.
Here's a look at Johnny Alford. 2.3 seconds off of pole currently, but that Corvette looks good today as he sits in the 4th spot. It looks like only 20 cars showing up, so a little bit of a thinner field for the biggest racetrack on the schedule, but I think we're going to see some pretty big action, especially in the opening moments. And I think we're going to see a very busy pit lane as well. There's only 1 or 2 laps you can pit on with a track this big. You can't save a full lap of fuel. Well, I say that. You might be able to save 1, and that's about it.
Yeah, you can try, but it is basically saving 8.5 miles worth of fuel, which if you've been able to save 1 or 2 laps, or I guess 2 laps on other tracks, that could translate to a full lap around here. But again,
that's 2 laps at Spa. I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, it really is. But at that, I do also expect the field to get somewhat spread out. So I believe the pit lane will be pretty busy, but I could also see the pit lane kind of getting like a couple cars every like 30 seconds or so, just kind of how the field could spread out today.
Unfortunately, no Stan Donna in the field. Glad he's watching along, though. As he mentions, he's down with the flu, unfortunately. So get better soon, Stan Donna. And across the line, David Payne takes a lap, but unfortunately, right at the end, invalidates it by going over the curbs. No, actually, it does count. It's just 8th quick. I'm surprised that counted. I thought that would have been a 1X for sure. But he is 6 seconds off a pole in the 8th spot, and that is nestled deep within the amateur field, actually. See, that is 4th, it looks like, in amateur, and that is not what he needs at all.
Absolutely not, especially if he's going to continue trekking his way forward through that deficit. Is going to need to kind of sift his way through here in the early corners and see if he can settle in and try to pick some guys off here throughout the race.
On board currently with Christian Clark out of the amateur class, 5th in class currently, 9th overall, as he's 7.6 seconds off a pole. That is a weird thing to say, 7.6 seconds off a pole in 10th place. But there is definitely room for that when you've got drivers like Sam Holt at the front, and just a wide gap. I think. I mean, Christian Clark is an amateur, and really he's only 4 seconds off of pole in class. At such a long racetrack like this, that's really only a second or so, maybe a second and a half at smaller racetracks. And it is a difficult racetrack. I mean, this is not at all easy to lap around Le Mans. And I think one of the great ways to look at it is that you only go to each corner once every 4 minutes. So not only do you have extra time within each corner, but you also have to memorize more corners. You have to get more corners right. You have to learn more corners. This is 33 corners as opposed to 10 last week at Red Bull Ring. We're taking nearly the time that it took to run 4 laps at Red Bull Ring to run 1 lap here. It's a complete difference.
I was just about to mention that, Andrew. Yes, it's 10 corners by count, but if you think about it, really, let's say 8 corners that you truly feel when you're racing around the Red Bull Ring compared to 33 on the track map. That is 1/4 of a lap around here. Very much so. There's a lot of time to be had out there, and I'm sure even Sam Holt has a lot of time to gain as well, just because it is so hard to master 33 corners. And to string them all together on a flying lap is going to be even tougher. Todd Leoto running his way through the Corvette curves and on his way down to the Ford chicane. We'll see here what kind of a time he's going to put up.
Getting a little bit extra kick out into the Ford chicanes. He's a little ways off, already 350. This lap is not going to be good for Todd Alea.
Actually, I think this might be the out lap.
It might be. 4 minutes. Yeah, I would hope that's an out lap. That's way off. That's 15 seconds off a pole nearly. So here we go. Todd Alea's final chance at qualifying beginning now, and we'll see if the sim gives him enough time to finish it. He will at least get around to Tetra Rouge before the timer runs out, if not further. He might even get close to the first Mulsanne chicane, but yeah, this... We'll see. We'll see for Todd Alea. Only a few other cars on track. Randall White, one of them, as he comes around the Mulsanne corner. Joao Antonio also on track as he comes into the Mulsanne corner. How about that? Along with Alesh Mom out on track, coming through the S's and up to Tetra Rouge in a moment. Christian Arelli also on as Alesh Mom goes off. Christian Arelli also on track as he heads down to Indianapolis. And Dale Maxwell, a new driver, heading into the Mulsanne corner. How about Todd Alea? Well, he'll make it to the first chicane. Will he make it to the second one? Does he have enough time?
I believe so. At this point, if he gets, let's say, 2.5 minutes of leeway from the sim, 2.5 minutes of runoff time, he should be okay. And
ooh, 5.5. Yeah, he's fine.
Minutes, so he's fine.
So everybody will have plenty of time to finish up their current laps. Well, it's nice of iRacing to give him a few minutes here to finish up their lap times. Randall White, let's see, he is headed into the Porsche curves, it looks like, out of Arnage. Let's ride on board of the Porsche for the Porsche curves. This is such a fun piece of racetrack, Emerson. I think this is my favorite part of Le Mans. Everything from Indianapolis through the Porsche curves, especially when you're in a prototype. I know these cars don't have as much downforce, they're not as spectacular to watch through there, but anything with a lot of downforce, a prototype, whether it's LMP1, LMP2, it's just so much fun through there.
Absolutely. It's so fast. The car can stick. You can really sling it around. You can get oh so close to that wall and then really swing it into the next corner. Randall White's coming down the pit lane, so that'll do it for Randall White. Here comes Joao Antonio on the way down through the Corvette curves.
Into the Ford chicanes for car 31. Joao Antonio going to take a shot here at the pole, maybe. He's a lot quicker than he has been. It looks like 344, 345. It's not a pole run, but it is faster by about a half second. Unfortunately, though, not good enough to move him up any positions. He stays in 4th place on the board. Dale Maxwell on track in his number 111 Chevrolet Corvette, coming into the Ford chicanes as well. And we'll see where Maxwell is able to go here on this lap. The final opportunity for him to get a lap time in. It's going to be a little bit off pace, admittedly, and it should be 15th quick if it counts. And it looks like there was an off track somewhere in that lap. So let's check in now. Todd Alea. He's just left Arnage, it looks like, and he's just up to the Porsche curves, the Corvette curves, and the Ford chicanes. Let's see if he can go faster. Let's see if he can even get a lap time.
And searching to see if this lap time will be valid, and into the Porsche curves. This is where you can really sling a car through here. See how close you can get to this wall. Oh, right there. Almost using all of the racetrack there. Get a nice wide sweep and arc to the rest of the Porsche curves.
Todd Alea, last week's winner at Red Bull Ring, suddenly the hottest driver in the Simpit Road Racing Series, trying to find something here in qualifying to go toe-to-toe with Sam Holt, Terry Crouch, and Randall White. He needs the starting position for the championship. He's got to find something here. 342, 343, it's going to be a little bit off pace, certainly not for pole, but can he go up there in the top 5 maybe? It's a 348, 402, and that is good enough for 7th on the board. At least he's up there. At least he got a time in.
Certainly, it'll be a little easier to kind of stay with your pro competitors and see if you can make up any points there on Randall White and company.
Yeah, to at least race with them, you have to start by them. That's the first step in that. So glad he was able to get that time in and be able to start up there with those guys. And hopefully be able to bring us a bit of a fight for the championship lead in pro. Let's take a look at our starting grid this evening from Le Mans. I say this evening, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're watching from, I suppose. It could be different for you. But Sam Holt on pole, that's nothing that we have... It's nothing out of the ordinary. There we go. That's what I was looking for. We had come to expect that from Sam Holt, no matter what track it is. And should have had that win at Daytona. Maybe should have been here last week. Maybe we'd still be in the championship fight. But hey, he's going for fun now as he puts it on pole here at Le Mans. Terry Crouch will start from the second spot on his outside. And then Randall White and Joey Antonio make up your second row here at Le Mans. Starting 5th, it's the Corvette of Johnny Alford with Chris Chettarelli on that row as well in 6th. And starting 7th, there you go, Todd Alea with your amateur pole sitter Ed Santinelli on the outside. And to round out your top 10, Emerson, your front half of the field, it's James Dowling and Dan Clark.
Right on. We get on to row number 6. It'll be David Payne there in the amateur field, along with Christian Clark starting in the 12th position. Position number 13 will find the 77 of Brandon Carl and the 66 of Ken Eastep. They round out row number 7. 15th will find the 194 of Alesh Mom, who went off there in qualifying. Mike Nickham there starting in the 16th position. Row number 9 will find the 39 of Sean Cole and the 188 of Moses Coy there in 18th. We find our way back to the final row of the grid. It's Dale Maxwell and Nicholas Batista.
All 20 cars ready to go racing as they finally roll away from the grid. Let's check out the weather conditions, and nearly identical to what we had at Indianapolis about 2 hours ago with the Formula League Formula 3 Series. 65 degrees in the air, 66 on track, calm winds here in Le Mans, France. It is a nice, beautiful day for racing. We talk about point standings. Let's bring it up one more time, Emerson. A good look at where everybody sorts into this race, but we have no clue where they'll leave this race in the standings. Things are bound to move around.
Certainly, all of a sudden, the drivers who are applying pressure on the point leaders in both championships, pro and amateur, now they're starting a little bit behind the 8 ball, and we'll see if they're going to be able to try to propel their way through the running order and see if they can continue to put that pressure on and continue to close up on that points lead.
Field works on through the Porsche curves. This is still an abbreviated pace lap, but it does feel a bit like a normal pace lap at any other circuit on the schedule. And speaking of the schedule, let's talk about the schedule as we come into race 8 on the season. Circuit de la Sarthe. It's just Sebring and Fuji after this. We've come through Austin, Elkhart Lake, Watkins Glen, Silverstone, Daytona, Monza, and Austria. And now we're up to Le Mans here on November 20th, 2022. So glad you're joining us here at Pit Stop TV. We really do appreciate it, and we hope you'll enjoy this one. This is going to be fun for sure. A big shout out to our partners here with the series, of course, the Simpit, Gomez Sim Industries, Get Closer Racing, Accelerate Esports, and our partners here at Pit Stop TV allowing us to do this. Whiplash Media Sim Cams bringing you the sights and sounds of Pit Stop TV, SimRepMarket.com, and Permanent Makeup in Cryo in Maine. Into the Ford chicanes we will go, and the field is turned over to the hands of Sam Holt and Terry Crouch. We'll get the overhead salute really any point in time now. But through the Ford chicanes, we're going to turn them loose. We're racing at Le Mans. On to Mulsanne for the first time. All 19 cars that made the start, no issues.
Yeah, very clean opening set of corners. You got a little bit of a side-by-side heading down the Mulsanne straight, but more than anything, most of these drivers have worked their way into single file formation. They are ready to kind of ride and just try to navigate this 33 corner, 8.5 mile beast that is the Le Mans circuit. And most of the drivers making their way very cleanly through the first chicane as well. And they work their way on to continue down the high-speed Mulsanne straight.
These Sanics around Le Mans really give you a sense of speed as they work into the second chicane now. Really gives you an idea of just how fast these guys are going around here. I mean, they really are booking it. They've got some speed to them. Even though they're leaving the second chicane at 120, they're still entering these chicanes at 170, 180. They're moving.
Absolutely. You're traveling at speeds where one little mistake, and there's not too much breathing room. There is shoulders there, technically to the side of the racing surface, but really there's guardrail there on both sides, and most of the way around the circuit, there's guardrail or wall waiting for you on each side of the circuit. So you're traveling at speeds where one little mistake could end your day.
Bit of a midfield battle here with David Payne and Moses Choi. Mike Nickham, Nicholas Batista, Sean Cole, all in tow. I must say, out front, it is still very tight. In fact, side by side for the race lead, headed down to Indianapolis, and Terry Crouch takes over at Le Mans. And Terry had no confidence coming into today whatsoever, but he's already leading here at Le Mans, taking over the race lead into Indianapolis from Sam Holt. And admittedly, Emerson, it's lap one. You're going to have some drafting, and we'll probably see these guys go back and forth, but that's always going to feel good.
Absolutely. Didn't have the confidence, but certainly felt some confidence as he left Mulsanne corner. We got a car off here. That's Moses Choi.
Moses Choi around into Indianapolis. This is a big problem for car 188. David Payne also with problems. They were both racing with each other, and Payne looks like off pace. I can't tell if he's got damage. It doesn't look like it. Let's check this out. Our first incident of the day, and it looks like Payne is just going to lock up through Arnage, but we're going to see the issue here for Moses Choi. Again, this is into Indianapolis. Choi takes the right side of the racetrack, goes deep through Indy, and just gets loose in the curbing. I think that just sets him up. Yeah, he just goes way, way deep, and that's heavy in the barriers.
Yeah, that curbing, it can catch your car and kind of set you up in a way where you are not expecting it, and if you're not able to really slow down on that curbing either, that really set up Moses Choi for some failure there and power right into that tire barrier.
Lap one finally going complete for these drivers as they come by the start-finish line. Nearly 5 minutes in. Actually, everybody's across the line now aside from Moses Choi and Christian Clark, who Christian, it looks like, had to start from the pit lane. He is only now, it looks like, into the Porsche curves. I'm not sure what happened there, if that was a penalty or what, but Christian Clark well behind the mark. 1 minute and 16 seconds back as Alesh Mom goes for a bit of a spin here out of the Dunlop chicane. Up front, though, Sam Holt, Terry Crouch, side by side once again as they head down the Mulsanne straight, and they swap spots once more.
They've built up a margin now about 1.5 seconds at this point that they're almost working with one another with slipstream more than anything. Kind of the places that these overtakes are happening into the first chicane now. Sam Holt holds the advantage, but I would not be surprised to see Terry Crouch retake the lead at some point here before Indianapolis.
We could even see it, honestly, into Mulsanne corner as we head down to Mulsanne straight once more into the next chicane. And oh, Terry, a weird squeeze there. He's going to go by in a weird spot, and Sam lets him have it. That was aggressive for sure from car 59, but a pass for the race lead is a pass for the race lead. And these guys are teammates, so they are working together to a point. I'm sure they're trying to race each other right now, not sharing too much, but they aren't going to crash each other, that's for sure. And actually, don't tell me it's a slowdown for Terry. He might have just been giving it back up. No, that's a slowdown for sure. He is slowing way down right now. Oh, man.
And I just wonder how long that slowdown is. Most drivers on the sim will attempt to give up that slowdown in the braking zone, but Terry, unless he just felt he wanted to give it up straight away, he's still
giving it back.
Serving a slowdown. My goodness, what kind of a slowdown did he receive?
He's still slowing down. And I think finally now is full on the accelerator. That is 4 seconds that he gave up. Dan Clark, problems out of Mulsanne corner. He's turned around.
That's not the right direction there for the 114 machine. Tries to get her turned around there in the gravel trap.
Todd Alea, Terry Crouch, they were side by side for a moment, I thought. Their deficits actually to each other were 0 for a moment, but looks like Todd Alea in the 5th position. So he's made up a couple of spots in car 127, right on the back end now of Terry Crouch. But the problem for him is Randall White's in 2nd and a few seconds up the road. That's certainly not what you want to have happen if you're in Todd's position.
Absolutely not, but still plenty of time to claw that back up, to stay in it. It looks like this week has it doesn't really have Todd Alea's name written on it or anything like that, but Todd Alea definitely can be on the up and coming throughout this race. Still 52 minutes. You can still kind of figure this place out. You can really reel some time in, and of course, there's plenty of opportunities for others to make mistakes. If you stay nice and tidy, who knows where you might end up at the end of this thing.
On board currently with Todd Alea as Moses Choi has another problem, this time out of Arnage, Emerson. Yeah, that's going to do it.
That is a lot of smoke off the rear end. I haven't seen that in a while for one of these GT cars.
That's going to do it for Moses Choi's day, that's for sure. Let's go back and see what happened to him here. And actually, this happened a while back. So let's just ride on board and see when the smoke starts. There it is. Let's go. And this is a result of the contact he had with the barrier in this corner the lap prior.
Yeah, that usually happens here on the sim. When you get into a front impact with a car that has a front engine, you typically affect the radiator and the like to the engine, and that can really raise the temperature there. I'd imagine this is probably just overheating there of the water temp, the oil temp, and the engine finally kind of let go there, where he's getting smoky. He's trying to nurse it around to the pit lane, but I'd imagine there's not much time left in that regard either.
Moses Choi done early, unfortunately, here at Le Mans, as they've got battles up front. Terry Crouch, Joey Antonio, they swap spots. Crouch goes on by for the 3rd position into the first chicane. Still 51 minutes to go, and already so much has happened. That's going to be a fun one. I'm excited for this, the rest of the day. This was one track I looked at the start of the season and said, yep, I'm going to enjoy this. This is going to be a lot of fun, and it has been so far. I know we've only just started, but I mean, we've got battles back here at 15th and 16th. There's just, you get into these pockets, into these little battles of 2 or 3 cars, and Brandon Carl through the bollards there in the first chicane. That's going to be a big slowdown, but you get into these little pockets and you just keep battling for lap after lap after lap.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honestly a little surprised just at how much overtaking ability there is here. I mean, the writing was on the wall with the way the track is designed, but it's proving so raceable right now here in the early stages. I am very excited to see how the rest of the 50 minutes will go, because if it's anything like this over the course of the next 50 minutes, very much in for an entertaining race.
James Dowling here on Ed Sanchinelli into the Mulsanne corner. Dowling a pro, Sanchinelli an am. And Sanchinelli hangs on to that spot. And Ed's got multiple spots in several seconds. 12 seconds for the amateur lead right now. David Payne is down there on 13th. This is exactly what David Payne cannot allow to happen. Unfortunately, there's really nothing he can do about it right now, as Payne is back here behind Kenny Stepp in the 13th spot. That is 4th in class.
Yeah, David Payne, he's got to be on damage control here. He's got to at least find his way back up to 2nd. And unfortunately, at that point, if he's going to have any chance of really taking over the amateur championship, he's going to have to root for some trouble towards Sanchinelli here. So David Payne, he's on a little bit of a mission here. We still have 49 minutes again for this race to play out, but at the very least, he's got to make it to the second position in class to be on some damage control.
Now, Dowling did just go by Santinelli, but as Payne leaves Arnage, Santinelli is already into the Porsche curves nearly, and will enter the Porsche curves now behind a Porsche in his BMW M8. Just such a big difference between these two right now, and where they are on the racetrack, the performance. This is not at all what we expected, but it sounded like from both, I guess, attackers, if you will, both offensive drivers in this case, David Payne and Todd Alea, they didn't sound at all confident in Le Mans, did they? They sounded more confident in Sebring and Fuji, two tracks they undoubtedly have, well, one of them they undoubtedly have more experience at, being Sebring, and the other they probably have more ability to get more laps in at, Fuji being so much shorter. So I'd imagine we'll see both of them come back in the next 2 weeks, but they can't allow these gaps to build too much today.
Absolutely not. Again, if you're gonna be having an off week, you've got to minimize the damage. You got to minimize the points lost in weeks like this if you're gonna stick through it, because every race does get shrunk together with these points totals. You said that at the moment there's no drop weeks, so again, every race, every spot, every minute of these races count, and of course, you have to fight tooth and nail through every bit of it if you're going to be the one on top at the end of it.
Just looking around the racetrack, there's battles really all over, so we'll stick up front for now as Randall White to the second spot by 3.8 seconds. As soon as Sam Holt got away, boy, did he get away. I think Terry Crouch's mistake was fatal for the rest of the field, realistically. There's no more racing Sam.
Yeah, because when they were battling, Randall White closed the gap up for 1.5 seconds to 1 second, and then unfortunately Terry caught that slowdown, and Sam Holt was gone. Sam Holt was able to run the line that he wants and he chose, and he's just able to kind of outclass everyone else behind. Even though the last lap Terry Crouch ran faster, at the moment it's not enough to really seal or to really close that gap in, as Terry Crouch goes to second on Randall White.
So Crouch goes on through, but again, I don't see Terry making up 4 seconds unaided on Sam Holt. I don't know how anybody's going to do that today. Todd Alea is in the 4th spot over Joe Antonio. And so your top 5 is 4 Porsches and a Ferrari. Your first Corvette is in 6th. Generelli is in 7th in a Porsche. Dowling is in 8th in a Porsche. Ed Santinelli admittedly is in 9th in a BMW. And then Sean Cole. How about Sean Cole right now in the 10th spot, just riding on his own?
Sean Cole here, little ways away from the rest of his pro competition, but is kind of in this little spot where he can just run his own race. Let any spots come to him, and you know, I guess it's really all you can ask for as a driver. If maybe this isn't a track you feel comfortable attacking on, just get into a little pocket where you can just race the track. It's just between yourself and the track, and if anything comes up, of course, you take advantage of it. But this is going to be a good way to just kind of get through the 45 minutes or so that's remaining.
Yes, 6 seconds out front, nearly 7 seconds out back. He's just in a good pocket right now, is Sean Cole. And this is a good opportunity to really see what it's like on board into Indianapolis and through Arnage. 2 really tricky corners, but if you get them right, they're so rewarding, so much fun to drive through.
And the corners, they're just so different, right? We got a car in the wall here.
Ken Estep in car 66. The Moza Racing Ferrari has got problems right in front of Brandon Carl on exit. This is out of Mulsanne corner, it looks like. It might be out of Arnage. It is out of Arnage.
That car looks like it's crabbing pretty bad. Some heavy suspension damage, and that angle to steering wheel, that is not necessarily the direction the car is going.
Started 14th, currently 16th and dropping, and was as high as 12th, and I think he was about in the 12th spot when this happened. And unfortunately, the day is about to be done for the Moza Racing Ferrari 488. It looks like as Terry Crouch goes purple at a 346.816. There goes 16th spot. Here comes 17th with a Leshmam. And Ken, a very slow crawl back to the pit lane. Let's see what happened for him. was racing with Mike Nickum back here into Indianapolis. And where's the contact happen? That's into Indy.
He's cleared.
Oh, man, he's deep.
Oh.
Yeah, he just carried a lot of speed through the apex, just too much speed in general, and that'll do it.
Yeah, the downhill right there before Indianapolis makes it so difficult to really pinpoint a braking zone, because you think you're carrying a certain amount of speed, then you kind of go through the downhill curve, you carry a little bit more speed, and then you get to your braking point, well, you realize you should have braked about 25, 50 meters earlier, and Ken Estep probably also got caught out there with some of the downshifts, just a little too much speed through the gravel trap, not slowing him down any, and makes good contact there with the tire barrier.
He'll come into the pit box and come to a stop. Meanwhile, we're going to join on board with Randall White in the midst of the second Mulsanne chicane. They're at least holding the gap now. I wonder if Sam Holt's starting to reel himself back and just save a little fuel. You do still want to save fuel here. You won't save laps, but you want to save fuel to at least put less fuel in the car. So there is still a reason to save today. You don't want to just go completely full throttle around here 100% of the time. You do want to cut back if you can.
Certainly, less time stationary, more time racing, right? So you do want to kind of, get any advantage you can on fuel. I think maybe the fuel, and certainly, these drivers, they know it a little bit more than I would, but the fuel strategy may be just so far gone that you just kind of want to just run the race out and not really put yourself in any trouble. So maybe Sam not running at 100% now, maybe toned it down to like 90%, just to kind of get through this race without any inkling of trouble.
Still on board here with Randall White as he chases Terry Crouch. We are in the late afternoon into evening hours in the sim, but I don't think we'll see any night racing. We're certainly a little too far ahead on that on the clock, and weather not changing. Just a nice day for racing for sure in the sim. There is a battle sparking up, though, for the 11th position between Mike Nickum and David Payne, and this is a necessary battle if you're car 73, David Payne. You've got to make this pass, and you've got to make the next one ahead of that, and the next one ahead of that, even if you can, but you certainly have to get by Mike Nickum here.
Certainly, and it very much could help out here if you prioritize exit there out of Indy and exit here out of Arnage. You can set yourself up greatly for a run, maybe have a go into the Porsche curves, but not close enough this time. So now what you've done here is you're going to have to follow Mike Nickum. Even if you have some pace over him, you're going to have to follow him over the course of the next mile and a half or so before you can really get to another passing opportunity, which that could be hurtful to the race, could hurt the momentum as well. So it's very important to also figure out where you make this overtake as well, as not only to when.
So fast there through the Porsche curves, carrying speed in excess of 130, 140 miles per hour. And no takers yet to the pit lane. I think that window's opening up, Emerson, but do you want to pit earlier or later in this case? I think you might want to just go ahead and save as much fuel as possible and pit as late as you can today. I don't think there's really any alternate strategy.
Yeah, at this point, you're kind of shooting for the same lap as your competitors. If you can make it, you might as well follow just the guy you're kind of racing with into the pit lane and kind of continue that race. Not really leave it up to, potentially running out of fuel somewhere around here or, under-fueling the car to the point where you can't make it at the end of the race. Because that's another thing, Andrew, is if this race gets timed out to where you have to run an extra lap and you don't plan for it, that is a huge miscalculation.
Well, we're expecting 16 laps of racing. We're on lap 6 currently. And really, we have no clue exactly how this is going to work out until about halfway. I think that's when we'll have an idea to a point of if we're going to get an extra lap or not. But through the first 20 minutes, 6 laps, well, 5.5 if you will. I suppose that makes sense. Yeah. That really actually sounds about right. We might get a 17th, but with the pit stop, I think it'll stay around 16 laps.
You see, that's the thing right there. We're not 100% sure, and if a driver guesses 16 laps and somehow Sam Holt lights up the charts over the course of the next 40 minutes and makes it to 17 laps, and you don't account for that 17th lap, boy, it is going to be a lonely final lap for you.
On board with Ed Santinelli as he works on James Dowling. And at this point, I think Ed is likely doing a bit of fuel saving. I think just kind of riding behind James, and that's, I think, the ideal way for this to go for Ed Santinelli. He could definitely take that 8th spot back away. I'm not sure if he gets back up to Generelli 8 seconds up the road or so, 7 seconds up the road, but I think definitely sit back of Dowling right now, save fuel, and get that spot back later.
And you can also see that's kind of evident by how much Sean Colt has picked up on Santinelli. That gap was, nearing 7 seconds. It's now, it dipped to 4.5 seconds, back to 5.5. But still, Sean Colt has made an indent in that gap. Not that Santinelli is racing Sean Colt for amateur classification, but, still would be a spot inside the top 10 overall. And Santinelli, I'd imagine, is, still looking to see where he can finish overall. But if he's able to save that lap of fuel, that could be huge. Again, saving a lap of fuel here, less time stopped in the box. That's a lot of seconds you can save.
Also worth mentioning, you see the brand new paint there from the Frito Sport 57. I think he's been working on a few of his paint schemes recently across the sim. This one of those new ones still kind of bears a resemblance to what he was racing prior, but a new fresh look as he works on James Dowling here. They have given up about a second to Sean Cole, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on where they are on the racetrack, but right around that number or so. As Randall White actually got really... Oh, Terry Crouch is way off track into the Ford chicanes and comes back across and nearly takes out Randall White. Oh, Terry Crouch is having a rough day. He's so quick, and just a couple of big mistakes today are really holding him back.
A scary moment there for Randall White. Nearly got a face full of that Ferrari. But you're right, for Terry Crouch, someone who's so fast. He's ran faster than Sam Holt almost every lap, besides the laps he's had those mistakes. And Todd is going around right now. He saves it, but here's
this will be the replay first. Yeah, Terry Crouch and Randall White into the Ford chicanes. Randall just put a little bit of pressure on, and I don't know if this just suddenly got to Terry or what, but he just goes deep in the first chicane and just locks up trying to hang on to it. Thankfully, no contact there. And then right afterwards, I'd imagine either in the Dunlop chicane or in the S's, something happens here for Todd.
Yeah, it happens here. Just coming off the Dunlop chicane, Todd, I'd imagine his eyes grew wide, maybe smelled some blood in the water there with Terry Crouch, while he still got some gravel on his tires, wants to take advantage of it, and maybe gets a little too much here on exit.
Just tracks out wide, and the low downforce setup that these guys are likely on today, that car just kind of comes around on exit. Got back to throttle maybe a little bit too soon. Way out front, Sam Holt has got a 5.3 second lead at this point. You see the entire rundown there on the left side of your screen. And while we near halfway, Emerson, we're going to go Pit Stop TV side by side here at Le Mans, and we'll be right back right around the halfway mark. welcome back to the virtual Le Mans. I think that just says enough for it on its own, but welcome back anyways to Circuit de la Sarthe in France. A lot of things that just happened, actually. We were just watching, and Emerson and I were talking off screen, of course. A lot just happened. We just saw a pit stop for the first time from one of our leaders in Terry Crouch, and we also just saw Chris Generelli seemingly randomly park his car in the entry of pit lane. So we've got a couple of things to go back and look at. We'll really just look at Chris Generelli coming in and stopping, but very odd. He was in the top 10, was having a good day.
Yeah, certainly, and hope nothing, no emergency came up or anything that forced Chris Generelli to kind of exit out of this race. But we'll see here what happened. It was kind of just awkward. He entered pit lane and kind of pulled off.
Into the Ford chicane, comes on into the pit lane, and just comes to a stop and decides to tow. So unsure what's going on there, but problem certainly for car 7. Meanwhile, Terry Crouch rejoining the field has actually just made a pass on David Payne into, it looks like, the second Mulsanne chicane. So move Terry Crouch into the 9th position now as the race starts to take a little bit of form with a pit stop now out of the way for Terry Crouch and pit stops looming for everybody else. And you mentioned it, Emerson, a bit of a reset maybe for Terry here after a couple of issues.
Yeah, I think as soon as that window opened, Terry's made a few mistakes here in the opening part of this race. So for Terry to kind of get back on track, just kind of, come into the box, stop, get a sip of water or whatever you're drinking. Maybe, just close your eyes for a second, reset, wait for that fuel to come back in and come off the pit lane as a new man and see if he can attack the final 35 minutes of this race.
I spoke with Terry a little bit last night, and he's on a bit of a different sim setup right now, and that's been plaguing him a little bit. He had some health concerns a couple of weeks back, but got through those all okay. And now, he had all of his triples die. Apparently, he had 3 49 or 48-inch monitors, and 2 of them died. The outer ones died. He just had the center, so now he's over to a triple wide, I believe. Not triple, sorry, an ultra wide, I believe, on a single monitor, and that's different. And while these are still very exquisite sim setups, and I would love that myself, it is different. And anytime you change things for any driver, it's going to throw them off at least a little bit, and it's just been plaguing him a little bit, just in the back of his mind, I think, annoying him, nagging at him a bit. So trying to overcome that, certainly. Terry Crouch just having a rough few weeks.
Yeah, I understand that for sure. Yes, I was getting a little jealous the way you were kind of listing off his setup, and his backup setup's an ultra wide. But I feel that even my pedals are moved like 2 inches. I feel like I can't run the same lap times anymore. So I can only imagine when your entire viewing experience of the sim changes, how much I could throw you off.
A pit lane visit now for Ed Sancinelli. Now, Crouch's was a total of 46.9 seconds in the box, 14.8 seconds, 46.9 on the lane, 14.8 in the box. We'll see if that's different maybe for Ed Sancinelli, but yeah, I was talking with Terry last night, and I sent him a picture after he mentioned, all of his woes, and they're all valid. When I sent him a picture of my 4 different monitors, 2 of them are Vizio TVs. One is and they're different TVs, by the way. One is a Samsung monitor. One is a Dell monitor. It's just kind of set up so that it works for broadcasting. And, but that's exactly, if you tune in on Fridays, actually, the Simpit has a fantastic live show that Sean Cole does. And, of course, they have their reviews throughout the week, their videos on the YouTube channel, as Ed essentially leaves the pit lane 5 seconds longer in the box than Crouch. But if you watch the Simpit's content, there is some really enthralling content, actually, to go back and watch through, whether it's, like I said, videos of the Simpit live show on Fridays at noon Eastern. It's really interesting to see what's changing in sim racing. That's what I'm trying to get to. And Sean Cole does a fantastic job of wrapping all of that up in a way that anybody can understand, and going through all the news that members in the Simpit Discord submit, basically, to be used for the news show on Fridays. It really is interesting to go on and listen. And a lot of these guys have really exquisite, fully built setups, and some of these guys are still just on the old whatever works setup, just like we are. So it is really interesting to kind of see what everybody in the Simpit here has, and just hear all the news of what's going on the Simpit on their Twitch channel. So again, I'd recommend the Simpit Live on Twitch. Certainly something I would watch on Fridays. While all of that's happening, 27 minutes to go in the race. The first half of today's broadcast, of course, brought to you by Gomez Sim Industries. This half of the broadcast brought to you by Get Closer Racing, Accelerate Esports as we work down to Indianapolis. This is a battle for fourth. Emerson, Joe Antonio, Johnny Alford.
And coming through Indianapolis, oh, wow. Antonio goes a little wide there, and Alford takes great advantage of that through into the fourth position now through Arnage. And we'll see if Antonio has any sort of comeback for Alfred. But Alfred steadily working his way forward and is looking pretty steady in that fourth position.
So a big pass there for Johnny Alford and the Corvette. And Johnny has slowly been outperforming, I think, where this car was at the beginning of the season. Just slowly getting better and better. And I'd love to see him maybe in equal equipment. It's nothing against the Corvette, but I think right now on iRacing, with the balance of performance, the Porsche is far and away the best car. That cannot be, I think, argued at this point in the GTE class. I love the C8R. I love the platform, but I think right now with iRacing's BOP, it's just a few steps behind. And unfortunately, that's just how it goes in BOP. Here we go, a pit stop here from Johnny Alford. That's literally the problem you open yourself up to anytime you try to BOP anybody, any kind of car, is one season you'll have it right, the next season somebody finds something in the Porsche, and the Porsche's out to lunch, and that's what we've seen this season.
Certainly, and this is kind of adjusted almost every season update, right? So you almost have to relearn kind of the BLPs, every 3 months or so, if they are getting that adjustment. I know at least in the special events, almost every time I read the forms, it's almost a different BLP almost every time there's a special event. But iRacing, it's trying to find that balance, and it's tough, right? Because he was short in the box there. Johnny Alford was.
That's going to cost him that spot and more. That's likely going to be a few seconds on the racetrack, unfortunately, for Alford. We'll see when Joe Antonio is able to pull away here. They pitted at the exact same time, so great comparison. Yeah, Alford pulls away, and he's actually going to be alongside, it looks like, Christian Clark, so that's going to get tight off pit entry, but Antonio is able to get away, and now Alford pulls away an extra 2 seconds, in addition to the couple of seconds he lost getting into the box, an extra 2 seconds in the box. That's problems for Ed Santinelli, maybe? Or Batista? Batista's coming in. I thought maybe Santinelli was off phase. I think it was Batista, actually, as he came in. Brandon Carl's got problems. Oh, yeah. My goodness. Brandon Carl and Christian Clark. And this is right in the Dunlop chicane.
It caught me off guard because my sim cut to it with a really loud crash. But yeah, coming off the Dunlop chicane, they both come together and already towing.
Clark had just pitted. So I wonder how he's in. Did he spin maybe? Yes, spins right there out of the Dunlop chicane. Never hits the brake. Well, he eventually hits the brake, but yeah, that is a big rookie mistake from Christian Clark, I think.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate situation there. Brandon did not deserve to kind of get caught up in that. And I can get it. To a certain extent for Chris, you make that mistake, it's a little embarrassing. You want to get off the track as soon as possible, but if traffic is coming, you just got to hold the brake and, let the traffic try to figure their way around you.
He waits here and then hits the brake there, and like he's already. I see what he's trying to do. He's trying to roll off of the racetrack, but the best way to stay out of the way is to be as narrow as possible or get off the racetrack as soon as possible. And in this case, you got cars approaching, so you don't want to get off the racetrack because that's unpredictable. Nobody knows where you're going to be. So you want to be as narrow as possible. And he had it for a moment where he was actually parallel to the racetrack. And maybe Christian go back and watch this and kind of learn from this, hopefully. For a moment, he's parallel right there. If he had just held the wheel straight and hit the brakes, Carl would have gone by fine. Nobody would have hit him. He could have righted himself easily. He was much more narrow, much easier to miss at that point. But when he turned the wheel and hit the brakes, not only is he turning and his trajectory is now unpredictable for Brandon Carl, but he's adding in that the pace at which his trajectory has changed is unpredictable. So many factors, and this is you know, we rag on drivers sometimes. I don't want it to be just a rag on drivers. Hopefully, drivers see this and can learn from it and can see the perspective of the other driver here. In this case, where there's nowhere for them to go because that trajectory was completely changed. And it's just one of those learning moments. Everybody does it at some point in their sim racing career, and they learn from it. And it's just part of growing as a driver.
Christian Clark, he's called it a day there. His leader, Sam Holt, is in the pit lane. Just to wrap up on that, he didn't mean to intentionally do that. He meant well, but just executed wrong.
Sam Holt finally in, as you mentioned. Randall White, Todd Alea as well. Everybody coming in this lap. And I mentioned there would be a cutoff at some point because the next time they'd have to be able to pit would be about 18 minutes to go. And that's getting close to the mark of being a little too far. So also 8 miles of fuel that you'd have to use. But everybody coming in this lap, it looks like on lap 11, well, 10 coming to 11, as Sam Holt will pull on away. 16.1 seconds. Here's Randall White. And that 16.1 is a little slower than Terry Crouch, but one of the better times of the day. 16.1 as well for Randall White.
And all of a sudden, Todd Alea's right there and within striking distance.
And there goes Terry Crouch.
Terry Crouch inserts himself right into the middle of that battle. Both of these drivers on cold tires. Terry may be able to take advantage here of Randall White if he can act quick enough.
So right back into a battle for second, third, and fourth. Randall White, Terry Crouch, and Todd Alea. How about that as everybody else comes in this lap? Joe Antonio has been down and away. Johnny Alford as well. But James Dowling now leaves. And Dan Clark is on the pit lane.
And this is what I expected the pit lane to kind of get busy at little spots.
Sean Cole's been on the pit lane for 40 seconds, Emerson. I just noticed this. He took tires.
Oh. Uncle down and away. That tends to happen. It's happened a few times this season. Though this time, I'd imagine maybe this was just forgetting to uncheck him, maybe on the pace lap or something. Because I don't believe Shunko had another trip down the pit lane.
I don't think he's been on the pit lane yet, so that is huge for Sean Cole. He was doing so good today and now gives up several points, several positions to drivers behind him. Meanwhile, Terry Crouch, Randall White, side by side. Here we go, Emerson.
All right, Terry just squeezes in front of Randall White into the chicane. Can he keep it nice and tidy through the second Mulsanne chicane? And they make their way on to the rest of the Mulsanne straight. And Todd Alea, he is there. He is within half a second of Randall White as well. Big news for Todd Alea if he's going to be able to stay in closing distance of this Pro Championship.
They work down to the Mulsanne corner here. This is exactly what Todd finally needed. Has a shot now at Randall White. It was looking like an uphill battle the entire race until the pit stops just made up enough time to get within range. Was a little bit quicker by a few tenths. And this is everything Todd needed.
Here we go. Massive 3-car battle while Sam Holt's out to lunch with a 9.2 second advantage. This, the wild battle for second. 3 very, very talented drivers now going toe-to-toe here on the run down to Indy.
And saving there is Todd Alea. He took less fuel than he actually needs, trying to save fuel to the end, and Terry runs wide in Indianapolis. No! Every time it looks up for Terry Crouch, he makes a mistake today.
And this track, Le Mans, will get you like that just when you're feeling confident about yourself. One little miscue, you're off in the gravel trap, your confidence then gets shot, and you have to regather yourself and try to remotivate yourself to continue on with the race, because the race moves on with or without you. And now here comes Todd Alea, closing up on Randall White.
Save some fuel there into the Porsche curves. He's just saving right now. He does not want to pass yet. He wants to pass in about 17 minutes and 30 seconds. Not yet.
I then wonder, how close is he? Is he going to be able to save enough fuel? Does he have the pace to sit with Randall White and save fuel?
They've got plenty of time out back to Terry Crouch. You see Todd kind of moving out of the draft for a moment. Just kind of spooking Randall, or at least giving him a spook in the mirrors. Oh, but Todd's deep. That is huge. He might lose the draft for that alone. Nearly gets hit by Terry Crouch. Gets in the draft of Terry, though. And the gap between Terry Crouch and Randall White is nearly a second.
Right, I think Terry Crouch does have the lap time advantage, but can Terry Crouch kind of reel himself back in, keep himself in this race, and more importantly, I guess for the championship battle, it would keep Todd Alea in this battle.
Yeah, Todd is trying to use Terry to get himself back into range now of Randall White. He lost draft to Randall, but he's got the draft to Terry, and Terry's now got to use the draft to Randall to, you know, make this whole thing a train. And the reason I mentioned a second there into Dunlop is because the draft is usually right about a second. That's where you want to be. If you go outside of a second back of somebody, you really don't have much pull on them. But if you stay within a second, that's usually kind of the range of where you can use that draft most effectively. And Terry was just on the fringe of that. Now Terry is closing in and leaving Todd Alea in the dust. Todd is nearly a second back of Terry Crouch now.
And now Todd may have to take a risk or two if he's going to stay in the slipstream of Terry Crouch. What I've seen there by watching the fluctuating time is it looks like Todd Alea prioritized his exit. He got an amazing exit there. He closed about a tenth there on Terry Crouch.
Big launch there out of the first chicane here on the Mulsanne Straight. It is lap 12 of an expected 16, by the way, so we'll have 4 laps to go the next time by the start-finish line. This is the only battle currently on the racetrack, and boy, is it a fun one.
And there's so much weight to it, Andrew. Todd Alea on damage control, trying to close that gap to Randall White at the moment, losing points. But if he can stick with Randall White, find a way around Randall White, it makes the championship battle even more enticing, more for us to watch in the coming weeks. But here, Terry Crouch also trying to regain his footing this race. He's had several opportunities to kind of even run away with the race win here, and is now fighting his way, trying to get at least second here and to kind of make up for somewhat of the mistakes he's made today.
From the chopper, you can see Terry Crouch closing in on Randall White, but how about the gap behind him to Todd Alea? It is nearly a second as these guys are fit to do battle. You see the graphic bottom right of the gap to Todd. Terry looks for a way by into Indianapolis, but it's not going to happen. He's going to have to wait, and that brings Todd back into the fight a little bit. That gives him a couple of tenths to work with. Terry's patience right now is what's going to save Todd Alea, it looks like.
Certainly. And you know what? I think Terry Crouch was, poised to make the move there into Indianapolis, wanted to, but after having that off last time through there, maybe wanted to play it a little safe. Maybe wanted to kind of reevaluate his decisions and see if there's a better opportunity somewhere else in the lap.
Kenny Sepp, albeit 2 laps down, just past Brandon Carl in the pit lane, as you see these two getting so close through the Porsche curves. And Todd Alea is back within a half second.
I mean, Todd Alea may also have some sort of a pace advantage. If he can keep it nice and tidy, he definitely can not only keep up with these boys, but he might have a chance to get through them.
Watching from high above, you can see the gap between each driver. This is second, third, and fourth on the racetrack. At some points, it's equidistant. At some points, it leans closer between Terry Crouch and Randall White. 4 laps to go for these drivers, and Terry's going to have a move into turn 1.
Side by side through the long sweeping right-hander into the heavy braking zone of the Dunlop chicane. Terry Crouch is through to the second position, and now as Todd Alea kind of goes bumping over some curves, Alea loses the the distance he had within Randall White's slipstream.
Todd Alea just made a big mistake, and I don't think he can be saved this time. He just looks like he's overdriving things a little bit, and we talked about earlier how neither one of the drivers in second into the championship today felt like they were all that great at Le Mans. Todd Alea is one of those 2 drivers, of course, so maybe just the round he is not going to get away with gaining points, but the unfortunate thing is how many points he's going to lose. If we look over to the point standings and more importantly the points format, the difference between third and fourth, it's only 3 points, but that is 3 more points that you have to make up when it's already a deficit of, 23, I think it is, into today? That's 26 points you now have to make up, and that is the difference he gained last week. So, this is really big, and I just don't know if he can keep doing it. I don't know if he can keep making up 26 points in a race. I don't know where that's going to happen again.
Certainly, it's not looking too light for Todd Alea. But now if you're Randall White, who's currently closing the gap down to Terry Crouch, and of course, this is a huge help to the slipstream he's getting down to Mulsanne Straight. Do you just sit behind Terry Crouch knowing are you big picture racing basically? You sit behind Terry Crouch, let him tow you along from Todd Alea, or do you try to race Terry Crouch, potentially bringing in Todd Alea into the battle?
I think if you're Randall, you try to just play as nice as you can. We saw Todd saving fuel. We heard him saving fuel. Randall might have to do the same. Just sit behind Terry for the moment. That said, they've put a 1.5 seconds on Todd Alea. I think within this run to the start-finish line, they could get another half second. Both of these drivers are better right now, lap after lap, than Todd Alea is right now. The 27 is just off pace from where we usually expect him. He's just not as quick today.
Certainly, and if he has to save fuel, Andrew, imagine what he's feeling right now. The panic that kind of rises through you to try to stay with the battle in front. All of a sudden, your thought of fuel saving goes out the window, and you can find yourself in a hole later in the race.
Through Indianapolis and into Arnage here. It'll be 3 laps to go when Sam Holt gets back to the start-finish line. Sam, by the way, into the Porsche curves in just a few moments. Such a quiet race in the best of ways. He's led all but 1 lap so far. 11 out of 12 laps completed. Only been as low as second, and that was when Terry Crouch brought him a fight for a little bit, and I believe that was the only lap that he did not lead. It was when Terry led 1 lap earlier, I think. We can verify that? Yeah, sure enough. Terry led 1 lap in that battle and immediately gave it back up.
Sam Holt had such a big advantage. Even when he came down the pit lane, he was able to kind of get to the start-finish line and lead the lap before anyone else really could. And Sam Holt, he's just been on a stellar drive. Very much is deserving of this run. Put himself into position. He's kept it tidy. And with 10 minutes to go, he's looked pretty stout.
10.9, now 11 seconds clear of second place with 10 minutes to go. Sam was just on something. Last lap, a 3:46.7. Last lap for Terry Crouch, a 3:47.1. That's a difference of 0.4. It's not much. It's not a ton, but it's also a half second off of what Sam actually could run, I think, if he really wanted to right now. A little further back, there is a battle for 11th sparking up. Mike Nickham, Dan Clark. We've seen a few issues for Dan today, but putting some pressure on for the 11th position, and that would be, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4th. Well, yeah, 3rd and 4th in class between these two.
And that, that's part of it. You get into some incidents early, right? You got to stay in it. You got to fight it through to the end. You don't know what can come up here. Right now, Dan Clark, who had that spin, was facing the wrong way, less than an hour ago. Now he's in contention for a podium in his category. And so Dan Clark trying to make something out of nothing today. And he's only just over half a second back from Nickham.
Still on board here with Dan Clark. The battle up front has kind of fizzled out. That's why we're checking this one out with Mike Nickham and Dan Clark. But it looks like Dan may be sitting back and just kind of biding his time at the moment as we watch from the Ferris wheel and into the Ford chicanes. It did close up a bunch right there in the first chicane. Oh, and he locks up. That's that battle done for a few. He loses draft even. 1.5 seconds back now. That's growing. Those mistakes are always so tough to swallow as a driver, but that's how the race goes. Sometimes you make those little mistakes, you might gain a little bit, and the other driver might make some mistakes, and it just kind of, it's an ebb and flow. Meanwhile, David Payne is not necessarily where he wants to be, but he is now second in class. So he at least made up some of those passes we were talking about and is in the 9th position overall, second in class, and within 15 seconds of Sanginelli. 7 minutes to go. I don't think Sanginelli makes a mistake, but it's always a possibility. And if so, David is there to try and capitalize.
Absolutely. And normally what you talk about kind of, unfortunately, Sanginelli's kind of been in trouble a lot over the past few weeks. as of recently, and he's had to be on damage control and try to recover and try to at least make something out of it, try to get second or third in class to try to not lose so many points. Well, now it's David Payne kind of on that foot, having to drive his way through the field, get up to second, and you know what? He's just gonna have to hang his cap on this day from the low way it looks at this moment with 7 minutes to go, and just kind of get out of here with the damage control he provided here.
And you know what's so unfortunate in this case is the difference between Payne and Santinelli right now is so much larger than the difference between White and Alea. The difference between Randall White and Todd Alea right now is 3 points. At least is what they're earning today. They're only going to add 3 more points to that deficit if they stay as they are. However, for for David Payne and Ed Santinelli, the difference that would grow is 10 extra points because they are being scored in separate classes. Santinelli would get a class win, which is 50 points, and Payne would get second place in class, which is 40 points. That is so huge, even though they're just as close as far as the listing here, one position apart on the racetrack. That is so huge. So huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, going into the next week, right, Todd Alea and David Payne, they would almost go about it, even though they're both second in points trying to chase down the point leader, they'd almost have to go about it in 2 different ways. If you think about it, you kind of have to get it all over the next 2 weeks if you're David Payne. While if you're Todd Alea, you can get most of it or some of it in one of the weeks and get some more the next week.
I think, contrary to that, actually, they're going to be almost equidistant from each of their respective leaders. If we bring up the points real quick, we can ride on board with Randall White for this. It's a difference of 7 between them, and right now they're earning a difference of 7 points. They would be exactly the same distance behind each of their leaders. That's crazy. The way this championship is working out, we may have equal differences between first and second in each class into the final 2 races beginning next week at Sebring. But this, go ahead.
I was just say if they both enter 26 points into next week's race at Sebring, but I believe that would just be first place for both of those drivers in the next 2 races, and third place for both of the points leaders over the next 2 races, and that would do it.
Yeah, but that's asking for a lot of consistency, and especially in the pro side with Sam Holt and Terry Crouch and Elliot Hellier if he's able to make it. I mean, even Jan Christensen, if he comes back and runs some races. Stan Donna even could get up there in podium. Let's not forget Joey Antonio, the dark horse in all of this, who's third in the standings. Even on the amateur side, if Chris Schultheis races one of these races, Daniel Clark, they can absolutely take some points away. Dustin Oberlo absolutely could if he races. There's a lot of dark horses in each class that could get up there and take points away and kind of interrupt that. I don't know. This is really going to be interesting. But we are looking at 26-point gaps in each class right now between our leaders after this race if everything holds as is. Randall White earning a total of 35 so far for his run. And Todd Alea earning 32. That's a difference of 3. That puts him up to 26. And on the amateur side, it's 50 and 40 between Santinelli and Payne. That would make the difference from 16 to 26 as well. So really bizarre the way this season is working out as we're within 4 minutes to go. We'll get the white flag signal next time by for Sam Holt. I guess this time by even. It's crazy to imagine. This broadcast has not felt like a full hour.
Part of it, there's just so much going on, right? And not just with the drivers on the track, but there's so much going on with the track. So many different parts to this 8.5-mile circuit. So much to take in, right? It kind of adds. It almost breaks down the race into parts in itself. The long straightaways kind of are the breaks in between some.
Looks like we had a bit of a network hiccup, but we do take the white flag. 1 lap to go at Le Mans. Presented by Whiplash Media Simcams. 10.5 seconds out front between Sam Holt and Terry Crouch. Terry Crouch now takes the white flag ahead of Randall White and Todd Alea. And there's still 1 lap for Todd to do something here.
Yeah, it's not impossible for this to be made up, by the way, as well. We've seen Todd Alea, if he prioritizes exits into chicanes, he can make up about a tenth to 2/10, and then he would put himself kind of in that slipstream, and then who knows what can happen if he gets himself close enough. Now, of course, it's not going to be the same effects as, DRS and F1, but certainly you'll feel a pickup in the RPM if you can get that a little bit closer.
Todd is so close to the edge of that draft, and really any mistake from Randall at this point, and Todd is there. So it does put pressure on Randall in that he has got to be perfect the rest of this lap, and that's a lot to ask of any racing driver at Le Mans. It's no easy task, as we've mentioned all day long, to get around this place without a mistake. We've seen Terry Crouch's mistakes throughout the day. We've seen mistakes from really every driver aside from Sam Holt, I feel like. Just little ones here and there, and they can mount up pretty easily. So if Randall White puts one wheel wrong, gets a slow down, or if he locks up at all into one of these corners, this race could completely flip.
You know what, Andrew? I kind of noticed it looked like Randall White just barely missed the apex at that first chicane, and Alea gained 0.2 of a second, and he's within that second now.
It could make up just enough. He is gaining into the second chicane if he keeps this up. If he's perfect the back end of this lap, much like we're asking of Randall White. Oh, he made up a lot right there. Pressure. The pressure is building. The question is Randall White going to walk out of this feeling like a coal or feeling like a diamond? Down to a half second. And just closing in. The vice grip's tightening from Todd Alea on Randall White right now. Closes in a Mulsanne corner. He needs to not try and get too much in one corner, though. Pace yourself, gain as you can, but he just made up another 1/10 and a half.
Beautiful corner. Beautiful Mulsanne corner there for Todd Alea. Alea is there. He's applying the pressure, and he may just have something to say by the end of this lap.
We officially get the white flag notification there. Sam Holt 10 seconds up the road, but here we go into Indianapolis, side by side for the points lead realistically. And Todd Alea is going to go right on through in Indianapolis. Can he slow down in time for the corner? The answer is yes. That changes things. I know it's only 3 points that's going to go Todd's way, but he's gaining. Make that now a 20-point gap instead of 26.
And that's huge, and that would be a mindset changer, but we're not done yet. There's still a very long straightaway here on the way down to the Porsche curves.
Todd Alea just did everything he needed to get that spot back away from Randall White, but he's got to hold on now. There's still a lot of drafting opportunity, particularly into the Ford chicanes. Through the Porsche curves this time, Todd Alea hanging on to that third spot and starting to pull away a little bit on Randall White. And I think he may have the spot. And oh, Randall White makes a mistake for one of the first times. He went way deep into the final Porsche curve, and he's just going to lose a little bit of time. And I think he's just too far back now as Sam Holt comes through the final Ford chicane. And Sam Holt's Porsche is going to victory lane at Le Mans.
A brilliant drive there for Sam Holt as the rest of the podium finishers come through the final corner. Terry Crouch second and Alea through the dirt, but will finish in third, provided that did not give him an extra X and did not give him a post-race penalty. Would have to check the incident count there. But what a drive from Todd Alea when we thought, he was kind of out of it and there was a long way to claw his way back. He stayed in it, stayed focused, waited for just little mistakes, and that's all it had to be. Just a couple little mistakes from Randall White, and Alea was able to take that final spot on the podium.
Here's a fun fight, meanwhile, as our amateur leader gets closer to finishing. Side by side in the amateur class, Dan Clark and Mike Nickham. This is for 11th spot. Clark finally goes on by, and Clark's in a good spot in points as well. He could use these to continue his fight against some other drivers, but he goes off on the exit of Indianapolis, and it's a big hit for the 114.
Oh, no.
As soon as he had that spot, he gave it right back up. The good news is, if he just gets himself back around this lap, is there any damage? I think he's okay suspension-wise. If he can just complete this lap, he will be okay. All while Ed Sancinelli comes across, and he wins at Le Mans.
A brilliant drive for Ed Sancinelli, and with having all those off weeks where he's had some trouble, I think finally this could be the point for Ed Sancinelli to kind of get a grip on this season once again and kind of just muscle his way through the final couple of weeks with the points lead he has.
Dan Clark has continued on. No issues for him aside from that bit of cosmetic damage in the wall that he got. Dale Maxwell continuing on. Nicholas Batista, Alesh Mom will wrap up this race in the background as Dan Clark will come into the Ford chicanes for the final time and just barely outlast his own troubles. Meanwhile, there's Mike Nickum to the start-finish line in the Batmobile. He will finish 11th overall. Here comes Dan Clark. And even Dale Maxwell to finish up this race in the 13th position. I think the only start that he's made so far this season, and a pretty good effort, honestly, all things considered there for car 111. Here comes Nicholas Batista in car 47. He's got a bit of damage for sure, but making it to the end of the race, no doubt.
Certainly, kudos to all these guys who are just kind of toughing it out and finishing these races. A shout out to Mike Nickum for staying disciplined in that final lap fight, because that was pretty much what gave him the opportunity to overtake Dan Clark and hold on to a podium position in his category.
Definitely appreciate just checking in on the YouTube chat. Appreciate the kind words out there, Stan and Ken. Also see Brandon Carl checked in, and he talked about a little bit the incident and saying it makes up for him doing the same thing to Brandon Payne at Monza a couple of weeks ago, so I think he's feeling a little bit better now. Alesh Mom, the final car on the racetrack, the only driver in a car at all right now, actually, as everybody else has escaped and finished the race. Alesh Mom just has to come back around through the Ford chicanes. Where is he? Where is he? There he is, poking underneath that Rolex banner. And the number 194 Chevrolet Corvette C8R will wrap up this race here at Le Mans. What a good time. I'm glad this was added to the schedule. I'm glad this was around.
Certainly would agree with that. We were entertained all throughout, and you know what, Andrew? We had fights that started 60 minutes ago that still went down all the way to the wire.
Let's check out our race results this evening from Le Mans. Of course, unofficial, but we're going to go with them, as we always do. Sam Holt, 8.5 seconds out front. He slowed down a little bit out of the Ford chicanes, but that was really an 11-second gap to second place. Todd Alea there in third. Randall White, fourth place tonight. That is such a huge battle between those two. Todd in the last lap said, I'm up to the challenge. Went up there, made up just enough time through the Mulsanne chicanes to gain and pass on Randall White. That is so crazy. Just thrilling stuff we had on the last lap right there. Todd Alea, again, that is huge. It's only 3 points, but that is a big momentum statement for Todd Alea in the closing moments here at Le Mans. Joe Antonio finishes 5th, Johnny Alford 6th over James Dowling, and Ed Santinelli wins in amateur today from the 8th place overall by 11 seconds still over David Payne and Sean Cole.
Continue to rest on here, and Mike Nickum comes home with that 3rd place finish in the amateur, 11th place overall. Dale Maxwell finishes in 12th. Nicholas Batista finishes 13th, Dan Clark 14th, and Alesh Mom, the final driver to finish the race, final driver on the lead lap there in the 15th position. Drivers that made their way out a little short ways away from the finish there. Brandon Carl in 16th, caught up in that incident there off the Dunlap chicane. Ken Nestep finishes 17th, 4 laps off the pace. Christian Clark, the other driver in that incident off the Dunlap chicane there in 18th. Chris Generelli unfortunately left the race there just a little bit before halfway, and Moses Choi in some early troubles caught the engine out and finishes 20th.
20 cars showed up today. 20 cars had a bit of fun, but only Sam Holt and Ed Santinelli really get to celebrate today. Although, guys, I guess you could include Todd Alea in that as well, just for that little win over Randall White. But just impressive runs all around for sure. The entire field. That does it for 60 minutes of racing. The drivers are already in the green room ready to talk to us, Emerson. And let's go ahead and bring in today's overall race winner, Sam Holt, who adds another one to his tally. Sam, it's been a couple of weeks since we talked to you. Didn't show at Red Bull Ring, but you came out here, had some fun, and won again.
Hey guys, how you doing? Yeah, that was a fun one. It's a bit similar to a couple of the other tracks this season, like Monza and stuff, where you just got to get people out of the tow and then, just try and maintain the gap. It was good fun.
Now, obviously, you missed a race for whatever reason last week, but it kind of takes you out of the points running. Do you approach these next two races at Sebring and Fuji any differently, or are you just out there, just screw it, we're going to try and go win regardless?
I mean, I'll always try and win. I don't want to interfere too much with Randall and Todd's championship, because it's obviously down to those two, isn't it? So yeah, just look to have some fun and try and win if I can.
And I know there's been a little bit of conversation a few times in the Simpit Road League Discord channel. Do you have any kind of inkling of what Terry's maybe going towards for next season? Do you have any clue what car he's going for? Anything like that?
I have absolutely no idea. You'll have to ask him.
Well, there you go. I thought maybe just something out of that TLDR conversation, maybe you could spill a secret to us, but we can ask Terry in a moment. But
I wish I could.
Well, congratulations, Sam. 15 laps led, easily the best driver here, and we've seen that a lot this season. Congratulations. We'll talk to you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Sam Holt, just the best of the night. There's really no other way to put it this evening as he goes and wins here at Le Mans. Let's go ahead and grab Terry Crouch, Emerson, second place finisher, although he had to overcome quite a bit of adversity.
Yeah, Terry Crouch had a wild day, able to lead the opening lap of today's race, and unfortunately, that's kind of where the good stuff ended. Terry, you had some fast laps, some very quick laps throughout the day today, but what happened out there?
Oh, well, it's a whole new config. You know, my displays, my whole rig is different than it was the last time I raced, and I want to apologize to Randall and Todd because I kept screwing up and almost collecting them, and it could have been really bad in their championship battle. And when I kind of split, I figured when I pitted early, I thought maybe I'd break the toe of Todd because we were just far enough apart that if I could get clean laps and everything would kind of calm down. And instead, I inserted myself right into the middle of their battle, and that was just rough. It was a really rough day. I'm lucky to get out with what I got.
Certainly, very fortunate that we didn't have any incidents that collected drivers today, Terry. So the new setup that Andrew was kind of alluding to in the middle of the broadcast, just how difficult was it then to get acclimated to the setup here? And was there anything maybe with the track just being so long and so difficult that may have caught you out today?
Well, everybody at the Simpit's going to be sick of hearing this, but I used to run triple 50s. And I fried 2 of them. And so I bought new ones, but they're still on the way. So I was down to a single screen. Granted, it's a single ultra wide, so it's not like running on a 27 or something like that. But I've done nothing but triples for, decades. So it was really tough. Everything felt smaller and just weird. Some of my references were not quite the same. And I can whine all day because, a lot of people would really like to have what I'm racing on. So I sound like a kind of a whiner, but it's just not what I'm used to, so I make a lot of mistakes.
No, I get it. I sympathize. Any little change to the sim setup that can do it to you. So, nonetheless, though, a second place finish, nothing to scoff at, and still had the pace to show out today, Terry. So, congratulations on the second place finish today. Best luck to you next time out at Sebring.
Appreciate it, man. I was a yo-yo today, so lucky to get out of here.
There you go. Second place finisher, Terry Crouch there. Just happy to not interfere with the championship battle anymore.
It's almost a shame we don't get to talk to either Todd Alea or Randall White out of that battle, but let's go on down and get Ed Sanchinelli, who wins today in amateur. And we're getting used to talking to the Frito Sport driver. Ed, another win for you, and this is an important one. This puts 10 extra points on the driver behind you in David Payne. How important was it coming into this race to make sure you executed on every level?
Well, it was really, really important for me. After the cursed weekend I had at Red Bull Ring, I really made sure I allotted time to practice all week. So, I know that David, it comes a little easier to him, but every time I've had a good result, it's because I just have to put in the time and hours. So, Terry Crouch also put together a good video and helped us all. And I just needed to get in there and get that seat time.
And let's focus forward for you. It's Sebring next up. How do you feel with that big, bulky BMW M8?
Hey, it's tough, it feels like a bus everywhere we go. So I'm just going to do what I can. And again, keep up the same routine, put in a lot of practice, and hopefully things go well there at Sebring because, I know how important this round was. I needed to finish and I needed points. So hopefully we can keep this going and I'm really worried about Fuji, but yeah, Sebring is another one that can be tough on us too.
Well, you certainly have a leg up to start things off these next couple of weeks. This run to the championship potentially for you, Ed. So head up, you got a leg up, and we'll see you next week at Sebring.
Thanks, guys, and thanks to Mike Nickham with Dark Nut stuff. He's got a great pedal mod that really helped me out here with braking. So take care, and thanks for the broadcast.
There you go, Ed Santinelli from Victory Lane this evening in Amateur. And Emerson, that means David Payne is next up in his number 73 Porsche.
Yeah, so David Payne, I'd say probably fared a little bit better than probably the confidence was feeling coming into today's race, right, David? So overall, how does it feel just getting out of here with the second place finish in the class?
Feels good. The confidence was lacking early on. Made a couple of mistakes, but which put me, back enough behind Edgar I couldn't catch up. But after that, I was pretty confident. Was consistent. And then, just held on to the end.
Now, of course, I know you would have loved to have chased down Ed and of course, put yourself in a little bit more of a propped up position heading into next week's race for the championship. So now you find yourself in a little bit bigger of a hole heading into Sebring. How do you feel about trying to claw that back, and how do you go about it?
More practice, more seat time, I think. Sebring's pretty bumpy, so it'll be challenging. Seat time.
Certainly. And one more, I guess, about today then. What were the biggest challenges about this 8.5 mile circuit today?
The last two chicanes. That was pretty much it. Just not used to them. That's all. I was just kind of terrified the rear end would step out if I cut them, so I didn't end up overslowing. Cost me a lot of time.
Well, there you go. Second place in the amateur category, 9th place overall finisher David Payne. Unfortunately, loses a little bit of deficit to Ed Santinelli, and will try to claw that back over the course of the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and David, I think for him, it's most important that he shows up, qualifies on pole next week, and puts himself in first every single lap in the amateur class next week at Sebring. It is so important for his season as a whole to do so. Let's check out our upcoming broadcasts here at Pit Stop TV. We've got a week off, Emerson, but that doesn't mean the action is stopping. We have a pretty packed beginning to December, actually, beginning to the winter, if you will, with Sebring first up in a week's time for the Simpit Road Racing Series. Then finally, we'll get to North Wilkesboro for the Outlaws Sim Series, pending a worldwide or nationwide storm anyways. But finally, we're going to get to go to Wilkesboro. And then, Thursday, look at that logo. Haven't seen that one in a while, but the North American Racing League is back on the channel. Road America on December 1st to open up their 4th season of GT3 racing. And of course, the weekend after that, we get a doubleheader once again with iFormula League action from Suzuka, followed up by Simpit action from Fuji. So it's a Japan doubleheader in a couple of Sundays' time.
Certainly, and all these tracks you listed off, Andrew, some iconic tracks in their own right, with Sebring and Road America being great American road racing facilities. And North Wilkesboro, of course, getting a lot of attention on the NASCAR side, being revived for what it's worth after coming to life in the sim and now being revived in real life. So a lot of hype coming up, and of course 2 iconic Japanese tracks the following weekend as well. So some amazing iconic racetracks coming up in the slate. I can't wait to get back to some NARL action at Road America, one of my favorite tracks in the nation. And of course, the Outlaws Championship is coming to a close very soon. We still have 3 spots up for grabs amongst 7 drivers. Can't wait to see how it goes down at North Wilkesboro.
There's plenty of places to watch along with the action and just follow along with Pit Stop TV in general. We certainly invite you to follow along with us at facebook.com/pitstoptv, twitter.com/pitstoptv_ or just at pitstoptv_, on Instagram at pit_stop_TV rather, and on YouTube at pitstoptv1, or the link there you see at the bottom right. You can also use the same username as Instagram on Twitch and find us on Twitch. We broadcast the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch. We post our social media updates on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We're not done just yet. Emerson, final thoughts here from Le Mans. That's crazy. From Le Mans. It's so cool we got the broadcast here today.
Well, of course, Le Mans, it doesn't really need any introduction. probably one of the most famous circuit in all of motorsports. It's an iconic one for sure, and I'm so glad we finally get to cover it. It's been a long time coming that we finally get to cover it, and it did not disappoint today, Andrew. Because again, we had battles all throughout the day. Unfortunately, some drivers got caught up in trouble, but that's the nature of the beast here. It's not an easy feat to tackle Le Mans for 60 minutes, and we saw, unfortunately, catch some drivers out, and of course, a thrilling battle there on the last lap, which could be huge in terms of the overall championship. Thoroughly entertained, very, very content with how the race went today, and can't wait to get to Sebring as well.
Well, there you have it. Emerson, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure as always. We have 2 really great races coming up the rest of the season, and just a lot of great races coming up on Pit Stop TV in general. If you're looking to add your league to the fray, email me directly at andrew@pitstoptv.com. Message us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you would like. That will do it for us here at Le Mans. I can't. Every time I think it's here at Le Mans, I just can't get it out immediately. It's just like it carries that much extra weight. But that will do it for us here from Circuit de la Sarthe, we'll say, here in Le Mans, France. It has been a pleasure as always. Hopefully you join us. That's the wrong B-roll, but hopefully you join us in a week's time for Sebring International Raceway for the Simpit Road Racing Series. That's going to be a lot of fun down in Sebring, Florida, and then we kick everything off into December with some really great races as well. We hope to see you there. If not, we hope to see you at another upcoming broadcast. But for all of us here at Pit Stop TV, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you there.